There are two men who live 4 doors apart on the same street, and if you drove past their houses on a Sunday afternoon, you would know exactly which one of them was winning. One driveway holds a matte black SUV, freshly leased, the kind with a grille like a clenched jaw and a monthly payment that could feed a family. The other driveway holds a 9-year-old sedan with a small scuff on the rear bumper that its owner has decided not to fix. One man wears a watch that catches the light when he gestures. The other wears something plastic he bought at a pharmacy. One of them posts from restaurants where the plates cost more than the entree looks like it should. The other packs a lunch. One of them, when a neighbor compliments the car, lights up. The other, when a neighbor teases the sedan, just smiles and says nothing. You already know which one you'd rather be, and you would be wrong. Because here's the thing nobody tells you at the start. The thing that would have saved you years if someone had just leaned in and said it plainly. The two men earn almost the exact same income, within a few $1,000s of each other. Same job tier, same city, same tax bracket, same number landing in their accounts on the same Friday. And one of them has a net worth climbing quietly past $400,000. While the other has a net worth of roughly nothing. Negative, if you're honest about the leases. Stay with me, because by the end of this you're going to see your entire street differently, your feed differently, the car in the next lane differently, maybe even yourself. There is a rule operating underneath all of this, silent, unglamorous, and almost never noticed until the day it's too late to use it. Broke people don't break it on purpose. They break it 1,000 quiet times, in 1,000 reasonable-sounding moments, and never once feel the break happen. So which man is which? Hold that question. We'll come back to the driveways. Let's talk about what's actually in the accounts. The man with the sedan, call him the one who looks like he's losing, has been doing something almost boring for 11 years. Every time his income went up, his spending mostly didn't. A raise came in, and instead of upgrading his life to match, he upgraded the gap between what he earned and what he spent. That gap is the whole game. He's not frugal in a way that hurts. He eats well. He takes a trip a year, his kids are fine. He just never let the lifestyle sprint ahead of the paycheck. Money comes in, a fixed slice leaves immediately for investments before he can feel it, and what's left is what he lives on. The man with the SUV did the opposite, and he did it reasonably every single time. The raise came, and so did the nicer car, because he'd earned it. The bonus came, and so did the watch, because you only live once. The promotion came, and so did the bigger house with the bigger payment, because that's what the promotion was for. Nothing he bought was insane. Each decision, on its own, looked like a person simply enjoying the fruits of hard work. That's what makes this so hard to see. The trap isn't one catastrophic mistake. It's 100 sensible yes, each one applauded, each one reasonable, each one quietly closing a door he didn't know was closing. Here's the part everyone misses. The thing that separates these two men isn't income. It isn't discipline in the Jim Bro sense. It isn't even intelligence. It's a single invisible number that almost nobody tracks, and it's the only number that ever mattered. The distance between what you earn and what you spend, kept and multiplied over time. Everything else is theater. The car is theater. The watch is theater. The house at the top of what the bank approved is the most expensive theater of all. And theater, it turns out, has a ticket price nobody quotes you up front. Let me give this rule a name, because once it has a name you'll see it everywhere. Call it the visibility tax. The visibility tax is the price you pay to be seen as wealthy, and here's the cruel part. It's charged in the exact currency that would have made you wealthy. Every dollar you spend making your life look richer on the outside is a dollar that can never work for you on the inside. It's not just spent, it's spent twice. Once when it leaves your account, and again as all the growth it would have produced over the next 30 years, quietly deleted before it ever existed. You don't see that second cost. That's why it's a tax and not a purchase. A purchase you feel. A tax just takes, invisibly, and hands you a receipt you'll only read decades later, when the money that could have been there simply isn't. And the people paying the highest visibility tax are almost never the actually rich. This isn't a new idea, and that should comfort you, because it means the pattern is real and studied. Over a century ago, the economist Thorstein Veblen described what he called conspicuous consumption, the habit of buying visible things precisely to signal status, where the point isn't the object but the audience. He was watching a different century's version of the same instinct. In a world with no phones, no feeds, no algorithms, the costume changes. The impulse doesn't. Give that impulse a camera in every pocket and a stage that never closes, and you don't get a new problem. You get the oldest problem, amplified past anything Veblen could have imagined. Then, decades later, two researchers named Thomas Stanley and William Danko spent years actually studying American millionaires, and they published what they found in a book called The Millionaire Next Door. What they discovered has been quietly making people uncomfortable ever since. The typical millionaire, they found, did not look like one. Modest house, used cars, often bought secondhand and driven for years. A watch you wouldn't glance at twice. Meanwhile, many of the people living in the gleaming houses, driving the least status symbols, dressed head to toe in the signals of wealth, had shockingly little in the bank. They coined a term for those high-income, low-net-worth people, the ones who look the part and own none of it. The millionaire next door was rarely the one who looked like a millionaire. He was the one you'd never look at twice. Read that again slowly. The people who look rich and the people who are rich are, statistically, often two different groups, sometimes opposite groups. The correlation you assumed was strong and positive is, at the extremes, sometimes negative. Let that rearrange something in you. Now let me show you the machine underneath. Because the visibility tax isn't a vibe. It's arithmetic, and the arithmetic is brutal. Take one ordinary decision. Not a yacht, not a Rolex, a car. Say two people both need to get to work. One buys a reliable used car and ends up with an all-in monthly cost, payment, insurance, the works, of around $400. The other leases something impressive and lands at around $900 a month. Because that's what the image costs. The gap between them is $500 a month. Just $500. It doesn't feel like a fortune. It feels like the difference between a normal car and a nice one. It feels, honestly, like a decision you're allowed to make. Now take that $500 a month, and instead of sending it to a dealership, send it into a low-cost index fund earning roughly 7% a year, which is a conservative long-run average, not a fantasy. Leave it alone. Don't touch it. In 30 years, that $500 a month becomes about $600,000. Sit with that. Not $6,000, not $60,000, somewhere in the neighborhood of $600,000, from a single recurring decision most people make without a second thought, renewed every few years for their entire adult life. The nicer car didn't cost $500 a month. It cost a paid-off house. It cost a decade of early retirement. It cost freedom. And it charged that freedom to a future version of you who never got a vote. That's the reframe that changes everything. The nicer car was never competing with the cheaper car. It was competing with your retirement. And nobody told you that, because an entire economy depends on you not doing that math. Now watch what happens when it isn't just the car. Because it's never just the car. Take the house, not a mansion, just the upgrade you stretched for because the promotion meant you could. Say it runs you $800 a month more than the perfectly good home you'd have been happy in. Bigger payment, bigger taxes, bigger everything to heat and cool and fill with furniture. Then stack the quiet subscriptions, the ones that renew while you sleep, the streaming you forgot you had, the apps, the memberships you use twice a year, the delivery premiums, the upgrades on upgrades. For a lot of people that's another $200 a month bleeding out invisibly. Add those to the $500 from the car, and you're at $1,500 a month, none of which bought you a materially better life. Just a more expensive-looking one. Run $1,500 a month at that same 7% for 30 years. It becomes roughly $1.8 million. Read that number again. Not from a windfall, not from a lucky stock, from the ordinary gap between a normal life and a life that merely looks a rung higher. That's the visibility tax with the mask off. It isn't $1 here and there. It's a river, and most people spend 40 years standing in it, wondering why the water never rises on their side. Now widen the lens, because this isn't just you, and it was never just you. This is happening to a whole generation at once, and it has a name now. People call it money dysmorphia, a distorted sense of your own financial reality, where you feel broke while overspending, or feel behind while doing fine, because the reference point isn't your life anymore. It's everyone's highlight reel, all at once, all day. Surveys in recent years have found that a striking share of adults admit their spending is driven by what they see other people doing online, and that a large portion of younger adults especially feel financial pressure to keep up with lifestyles they're watching on a screen. The scroll has become the mirror, and the mirror lies. Think about what that actually means. 2 generations ago, you compared your life to maybe a dozen neighbors, people whose incomes roughly resembled yours, whose driveways you could actually see. Today you compare your life, thousands of times a day, to a curated global montage of the best 3 seconds of 10,000 strangers' lives, many of them broke behind the camera, many of them paid to look otherwise, almost none of them showing you the balance sheet. You are running a race against ghosts, against people who don't exist as they appear, whose lives are lit and cropped and staged, whose debt never makes the edit. And the visibility tax is the entry fee you pay to keep running it. Here's the cruelest turn of that screw. The comparison never resolves. There is no income at which the feed says enough. Earn more, and the algorithm simply shows you a more expensive tier of stranger. The goalpost isn't just moving, it's engineered to move, forever, one rung above wherever you land. Which means the only way to win the game is to notice you're playing it and quietly walk off the field. Let me make this real with the only proof that ever lands: actual people. There's Marcus, who made $160,000 a year and could not tell you where a single dollar went. Beautiful apartment, constant dinners, always the one who grabbed the check. Everyone assumed he was set. When his company downsized, he had 5 weeks of runway. 5. On a 6-figure income. The image had eaten the emergency fund years before the emergency arrived. There's Priya, who earned less than Marcus by $40,000 and drove a car so unremarkable her coworkers gently teased her about it. She let them. What they didn't know was that she was quietly maxing a retirement account every year and had a portfolio that would let her walk away from any job that ever disrespected her. The teasing cost her nothing. The freedom was priceless. She had bought the one thing the visibility tax makes almost impossible to buy: the ability to not care. There's Devin, who upgraded his house every time he got promoted, always stretching to the top of what the bank would approve. He was, on paper, a success story. He was also, in reality, one missed bonus away from panic for 15 straight years. He owned a lot. He kept almost none of it. There's Renata, who did something radical. Every raise she ever got, she pretended half of it never happened. It went straight into investments before it could touch her lifestyle. She lived like she made less, and because of that, one day she genuinely didn't have to work. Her secret wasn't income, it was the gap. There's Theo, who leased the nice car, wore the nice clothes, and confided to a friend that he lay awake most nights doing math he didn't want anyone to know he was doing. From the outside, he had made it. From the inside, he was drowning politely, in a very expensive suit. There's Jerome, who made half of what his brother made and retired 6 years earlier, because while his brother was financing a lifestyle, Jerome was financing an exit. Same family, same start, same values on the surface. One of them bought things, the other bought time. Only one of them still has to set an alarm. There's Adiz, who got a windfall, a real one, an inheritance that could have changed everything, and watched a friend in the same position blow an identical sum in under 2 years on cars and trips and a wedding that impressed people who forgot it by spring. Adiz invested almost all of hers and barely told a soul. Today one of them is wealthy and quiet, the other has photos. And there's Camille, who muted every account that made her feel poor, automated everything, stopped explaining her cheap car to anyone, and watched her net worth cross $250,000 before she turned 35, while her louder, flashier friends were still posting from rented lifestyles and privately sinking. 8 people. Same lesson, 8 times. The ones who looked like they were winning were often the ones losing the quietest, and the ones who looked ordinary were free. Before we go further, if any of this is landing, subscribe, because this channel breaks down the real numbers behind the life you're actually living every single week, without the shame and without the sales pitch. And stay with me, because the biggest point is the one I'm about to make, the one that reorganizes everything you just heard. Here it is. Once you truly see the visibility tax, you can't unsee it, and the whole world inverts. You start walking through it like someone handed you a second set of eyes. The glittering car in the next lane stops looking like success and starts looking like a monthly withdrawal from someone's future. The perfect vacation grid stops looking like winning and starts looking like a receipt someone can't afford. The enormous house with the enormous payment stops looking like an arrival and starts looking like a cage with nice countertops. And the people you quietly pitted, the plain car, the small house, the watch that doesn't sparkle, you start to realize a lot of them are the freest people you know. They're not behind. They were never behind. They just refused to pay a tax that everyone around them was cheerfully, desperately paying. And they kept the money that everyone else set on fire for applause. The flashy ones look rich and are often broke. The plain ones look ordinary and are often free. Once you see it, you can't stop seeing it. It's on every street. It's 4 doors apart. So how do you actually step off this treadmill without becoming a joyless miser who tracks every coffee? You don't need to. That's the good news. You need one honest question and a few quiet systems. The question is this, and you ask it before any meaningful purchase: am I buying this for me? Or for the version of me that other people see? That's it. If the honest answer is that it's for the audience, you've just spotted the visibility tax in the wild, and you get to choose whether to pay it. Sometimes you still will. That's fine. The power isn't in always saying no. It's in knowing, for the first time, that you were being charged at all. Then automate the gap so willpower never enters the room. The day your money lands, a fixed slice leaves on its own for investing, before you can feel it, before you can spend it, before your brain even registers it as available. Pay the future first, live on the rest. This one trick quietly does what decades of budgeting spreadsheets fail to do. because it removes the daily decision entirely. You don't have to be disciplined every day. You have to be disciplined once, on the day you set it up. Then mute the feed. Not forever, not dramatically. Just unfollow, quietly, every account that consistently makes you reach for your wallet to feel okay. You are not missing out. You are stepping out of a race you were never going to win, against people who mostly aren't winning it either. And you don't need to be a genius investor to start. Park your emergency fund somewhere it earns real interest instead of nothing. A high-yield savings account will pay you meaningfully more than a traditional one, for the same zero effort. Then begin, calmly, in the safest, most boring corner of investing, broad, low-cost index funds, the kind that simply own a slice of everything and let time do the work. You are not trying to get rich this afternoon. You are trying to make sure the gap you're keeping actually grows. Boring is the strategy. Boring, repeated for 30 years, is how quiet fortunes are built while loud ones quietly collapse. Because here's what matters more than any number today. Your trajectory beats your position. Where you are right now tells me almost nothing. The direction you're pointed tells me everything. Someone with very little who has opened the gap and pointed it the right way will quietly pass someone with far more who is spending faster than they earn. Velocity beats position every single time. So if you feel behind right now, hear this clearly, you're not behind. You're at a turning point. The only people who can't be helped are the ones who never see the tax at all, and you just did. That alone puts you ahead of almost everyone on your street. If you want the natural next step, the video I'd point you to next breaks down the simple financial foundations underneath all of this, how to actually build the gap, where to put it, and the order to do it in, because seeing the trap is step 1, and building the escape is step 2. And it's simpler than anyone made it sound. Now let's go back to those two driveways. The matte black SUV and the 9-year-old sedan, 4 doors apart, same income, same street. When we started, you knew exactly which man was winning. The one with the gleaming car, the watch that caught the light, the restaurant plates, the life that looked like a rival. Look again. The man with the SUV owns almost nothing that the bank can't take back, and he lies awake doing math in an expensive suit. The man with the sedan, with the scuff he never bothered to fix, has $400,000 quietly working for him, a decade of freedom already banked, and the one luxury the other man will never afford at any income. He doesn't have to be seen as rich, because he's too busy actually being it. When the neighbor teased the sedan, that smile you saw wasn't embarrassment. It was a man who'd read the receipt everyone else was still ignoring, and knew exactly what his silence was worth. Same street, same paycheck, opposite lives. The rule was there the whole time. Silent under both driveways. One man never noticed it, and it cost him everything slowly. The other built his whole quiet life on it. Now you've noticed it too. The only question left is which driveway you're building.